welcome back to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse and MJ, where each episode we go back and look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This is our 12th day of Podmas. It's almost like a song.
I was just going to say it. 12th day of Podmas.
And we are putting out an episode every day right up to Christmas. Today we are having a look at Netflix's 60th film. It's the 2017 urban fantasy crime film Bright. It's directed by David Ayer. It stars Will Smith, Joel Edgerton, Noomi Rapace, Lucy Fry, Edgar Ramirez, and Ike Barinholtz.
This is one that I circled. As soon as we had the list out, I circled this one and was like, I've always wanted to watch this one. It was really big when it came out, and there was a lot of above-the-line spend for it.
Yeah,
to advertise it.
Yeah, a lot of promo when it came out.
Massive.
I remember.
It was the first time I really remember Netflix having hardcore promo, and I guess Will Smith will do that.
Yeah,
to
get an audience straight away.
But yeah, I was like, this is episode number 60. That'll be ages away.
Yeah.
And here we are.
We made it. So we start off our show with our fast flicks, where we do a quick little summary of the film. MJ, what's your summary?
2 cops, one night, on the run to stay alive and protect the city from a supernatural presence with a power they can only imagine.
Ooh, very like, ooh. Ooh. I don't even know how to word that. Ooh. Okay. I started very similar. I've gone, a pair of cops must work their way through a futuristic LA to ensure a magical wand doesn't get into the wrong hands.
Yeah, and you know what? Before, I had no idea that this film was like about this. I never knew it was so fantastical.
Yeah.
Like, I knew, obviously, Joel Edgerton played some kind of orcish character. But I didn't know. I thought it was just like alright, we've got humans and orcs living in this. I didn't think it was going to be every little, like, wands and fairies and elves. And
Nah. I was probably a little bit surprised.
So you hadn't seen this, had you?
I hadn't seen it, no. And, yeah, we've watched it now, so I guess we're going to get into some spoilers.
We absolutely
We're going to destroy the
That's a good point. If you haven't seen this film and you really want to watch it, do yourself a little Christmas favour and watch it now.
Definitely. All right.
And then listen to us.
What have we learnt about this film? What's some histories? Anything that we've learned about it being made?
Well, what I love about it, which we don't get a lot on Netflix,
is
it has a budget.
Oh, good.
It has a budget.
I was hoping you were going to have some similar films for us.
Strike me down. It is a $90 million budget.
This was Netflix's most expensive film to date when this came out.
And here we are in 2019, and not that we've looked, but I reckon it probably still is the most expensive.
Not quite.
Okay.
The last couple of weeks, The Irishman's come out, and I'm pretty sure that's about 160 they spent on
Is
that.
it really?
I'm pretty sure.
Because 90 million is a
lot
big
of money.
budget, full stop.
Massive.
Actually, and that's a good segue to my comparative titles that
Yes. What? Yeah, tell us.
Well, my favourite one is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. So the newest Jumanji, or the most recent Jumanji film that came out in cinemas, released 2 days earlier than this. So we're talking like the exact same time frame, and it had the same budget, although that grossed nearly $1 billion worldwide. If I had $90 million to spend on a film, I'd be spending it on Jumanji rather than Bright. Like, look at those sliding door moments between those two films.
Yep.
Another film that I found interesting was a $90 million budget was Men in Black. Obviously, another Will Smith.
The first one?
The first one.
Okay, well that's...
Long time ago.
Yeah, and
so
that'd be worth a lot more now.
With inflation. Toy Story 2, Rush Hour 2, Sherlock Holmes, and then a few more recent ones. Magnificent 7, the 2016 one.
Yep.
Pixels.
Adam
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which surprised me. It was that big. And then quite recently, this year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was 90 million.
So a lot of these big sort of box office fair ones that...
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they're movies that generally have stars in the cast. They generally did pretty well at the box office. I mean, granted, there's a lot of $90 million movies that didn't.
Yeah.
But, this is just to highlight what you can do with $90 million and where it has been spent otherwise, because it's nice to have that context.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Before this, I mean, obviously The Irishman aside, before this, I think, this is the 60th film. I think Spectral was probably the biggest one that we had. I think from memory that was 50 mil.
Yeah.
And that was a big budget.
was a big budget. I just double checked. Irishman, 159 million.
Geez, that's a good memory.
I was only a mil off, and that's spare change compared to what they're spending on it. So
wowee, that's such and that's a topic for later on.
Yeah.
How Netflix approaches all that.
Yeah.
That's
all right. Well, so this Well, the deal for the second film, like they've already said, they signed off before this was released for a second film.
I also did not know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I knew that there were talks of a sequel. I didn't realize it was like signed and delivered.
Like locked and loaded.
Yeah, and it was meant to start production in September 2019, but because Will Smith's obviously a very busy man, they've had to postpone it.
What would he be doing in September 2019?
September Gemini. So Gemini, was it called? Gemini
Man,
would have been doing the...
Finished with that.
But he would have been doing press tour.
Bit of a junket, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was locked and loaded, so that's going to be coming at some point. We'll be watching it.
So the guy who wrote the script, did you see? So he sold it for $3.5 million, and then he stated that he turned down an additional $1 million to make sure that he got the director David Ayer on, because he wrote this specifically for him.
Which is interesting because obviously David Ayer, which we'll probably get to later, did Suicide Squad. This had such a Suicide Squad feel to it.
Definitely. That dark sort of gritty.
Yeah, and kind of. It's not that Suicide Squad is technically fantastical, but obviously there's a
fantastical elements.
There's a big witch element in that movie.
Yeah. Anything else that you've got?
So obviously this film went to bid with the script.
Yep.
And with David Ayer, and I'm pretty sure Will Smith was already attached at that point. So the bids included one from Palm Star Media with a joint offer from Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers financier MGM, and Netflix obviously came out on top. So it was a big coup for Netflix.
Sure was.
And I wonder how much guys like David Ayer and Will Smith were like, oh, okay, this is going to be on the small screen and small screen only.
Yeah, and I guess this is something that we're going to talk about now, where we don't get it very often, but we got a little bit of info from Netflix on how many people had watched this.
How good would this job be if we had this for every film? If we just jumped onto like Nielsen, and they just gave us the stats for every single movie.
So what they announced that the film had been viewed more times in its first week than any other Netflix release. That's and I guess that's payoff for the buck that they spent on it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Reed Hastings, the Netflix CEO, talked about we'll probably get to the critical consensus in a second, that critics in general, and I tend to agree with him here, can be really disconnected from what has mass appeal.
Yep.
And just because a film is popular critically doesn't necessarily relate to eyeballs. And we see this heaps at the box office as well, and that's why superhero films are such a safe bet with box office films. So Netflix rolling the dice on this, aren't expecting it to get great critical reviews, but obviously they understand that this is a sort of film that's going to get people watching it. And we know for a fact in Australia, and I'm sure it's worldwide, that Netflix put a lot of money for above the line spend on media advertising for this movie as well. And not that we have the exact numbers, but Nielsen has estimated that an average of 11 million people in the US were watching Bright during any given minute over its debut weekend in December.
Yep.
And when we look here at the amount of ratings that it has on IMDb, for example, it's over 150,000, which is a huge number. So
if you have 11 million people rock up to the cinema to watch this, like, that box office number's huge. Yeah, huge.
You can't,
and I know you can't compare it.
It's such an easy conversion to turn your telly on. Yeah. That's what everyone was saying when Bird Box came out. They're like, this would have been the highest grossing film of all time. It's like, because it's turning your TV on as opposed to spending $20 to go to the cinemas. Yeah.
Anything else that... so it was filmed in LA?
It was filmed in LA. Very... would you say LA is a character in this one, Jesse?
Not quite.
Well, it's not the LA we know, is it?
No, it's different, yeah. I in the credits as well, I thought it was interesting that there was this big quote at the end where it said, Australian visual effects were undertaken with the assistance of the Australian government. So a bit of taxpayer dosh spent on creating this film in Australia.
So we invested in this film, you and I, effectively.
Yeah, we sure did.
It won an award.
It did.
The California On Location Awards for the Location Team of the Year in the feature film section.
Yeah, and it had 7 other nominations for a variety of...
Yeah, a lot of things like best hair and makeup, which I totally get.
Yep.
I also don't think it was going to blow me away, and it was probably never going to win those big awards. Got some trailer awards as well, which I think Netflix do alright with the trailer awards.
They sure do. Maybe that's a guaranteed nomination if we pop it into those categories.
Now, I never look at Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
But I'm assuming it's not great because of what Reed Hastings came out and said. What is it, Jesse?
Rotten Tomatoes. So the consensus from critics on Rotten Tomatoes was 27% on 108 reviews.
It's actually quite small, 108.
The audience, however, and this is where I think you're going to agree with this, 84%.
There you go. So that's the thing. Netflix...
Want to have a ballpark guess of how many people from the public went on to give it a rating?
Ooh. 20,000.
19, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well done, very good. So, yeah, a bit over 19,000. And then you obviously look at IMDb.
I do look at IMDb.
And that's huge.
IMDb 6.4 out of 10 from 152,000 ratings.
Yeah.
Really robust sample size. Pretty decent audience score. Letterboxd, certainly a bit lower, which I'm not surprised with. 2.4 out of 5, again, from 42,000. That number's actually quite small, the 42,000, compared to the 150. But again, we know Letterboxd is a bit more of a filmy kind of audience, so not surprising that score is more in line with the critics' score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Rotten Tomatoes, yeah.
But you know what? This is just a boom win for Netflix.
Definitely. So
they spent a lot of money though.
They did. Just a lot of money. Did you notice the Netflix title at the start?
Yes. Yes.
Different.
I was waiting for it. I'm like, this is gonna, and it still did the dum, but
it had the little blue sort of. I liked that. That was cool.
That's right.
The other thing that I sort of picked up on was, so when you go into Netflix and you type in Bright to search for it, did you notice the extra content they had on there? It's almost like when you go back to the days with the DVD and you've got the special features.
I still look at that.
Yeah, so it was cool. So you type Bright in and you get the film, and then the next thing is they've got, it was like a little package, Bright, the music videos. So they had 4 of the songs from the film. So they had Home by Machine Gun Kelly, World Gone Mad by Bastille, Broken People by Logic and Rag and Bone, and then Danger by Migos and Marshmello. So pretty big artists. And then they had 4 video clips for each of the songs that were original songs from the film.
Okay.
And they it's going back to like the 90s where you had music video clips with footage of the film in the clips. And I sat through and watched a couple.
Not bad. I'd still rather see the more behind the scenes stuff that you see on... Like, there's no reason why for their original films specifically that they shouldn't be
have that extra content.
Because if you love a film, right... Let's track back to Okja when we watched that, and that's probably the film that I've loved the most since we've been doing this. I would have been sitting there for hours looking at all the special features because I just want to eat it up and drink it up as much as possible. So
that song, the Home song, I'd heard that before. Don't remember the one that went over the opening of the film. I knew that song. I'd heard that on the radio, so I was surprised at that song.
Who sung it again?
That was the Machine Gun Kelly song. Yeah, so as soon as the film started and I heard that song, I was like, oh, I know this song. Okay. I was pleasantly surprised that it was actual original song from this film. The other thing I had on there as well, so there's one other feature on there. So Netflix have these like packages where they have like a fireplace playing on the TV screen. Yeah.
I've seen this one.
You saw this at my house. I had this on in the background one time. So they had like the home fireplace, the Bright edition, and it was just like this toxic barrel with the different color lights and the fairies going past.
I recall that being very cool when we.
So nice that they tried to add a couple of little things in there as well.
Yeah, they didn't leave any stone unturned with this film.
No. All right, so it came out in December 2017. So this just before Christmas, so a good little time to release.
Before Christmas.
What are your early thoughts on this film?
I thought it was pretty ordinary, to be honest. I was disappointed because I did set myself these expectations. There was probably a 10 to 15 minute period throughout the middle, right after they discovered the wand and they went a little bit renegade, that I got pumped for it, and I thought it was going to keep heading down this track that got me excited, but it really didn't go down there at all. It kind of had all the bad tropes from Suicide Squad.
Okay.
And I didn't, despite the canning that Suicide Squad got, I didn't mind it, but a lot of the bad elements of it were really obvious in this.
Okay.
Mainly with the ending. In both cases, Suicide Squad ending bothered me, and this was a really similar ending to Suicide Squad with the witch magic stuff. And I'll get to that later on.
Yep.
But yeah, I was disappointed in this film. What about you?
So I really disliked Suicide Squad.
Yeah, okay.
But I liked the setup for this one. I liked the style and the sort of, this whole world that you knew nothing about. And I was along for the ride, so this could be a good little discussion.
I was actually hoping you would be, because I wanted to be along for the ride. But.
Yeah, I got on and I didn't mind this one. Didn't mind it. Thought it was a nice little film that you can just sit back, relax, and watch.
Nothing about this film's little, Jesse.
True. All right, well let's talk about some characters.
All right, who do you want to start with? You're going to lead this discussion.
We're going to start with Ward.
Yep, good.
I think we need to start with Will Smith's character. don't necessarily like him as a character though.
I don't think he's supposed to.
So they have this setup that he's obviously he's a cop and he's this sort of family man. They try to show you that he's drowning in debt. He wants to do the right thing for his family. He loves them, but you didn't really see him change much as a character or see that development with that family, and that sort of annoyed me a bit. But and then he's got this characteristic that he's not going to snitch. He's not going to snitch. He's not going to rat people out. And I don't know. I didn't really like him as a character because I didn't really see the good in him that often.
No, he was just a bit of a dick, to be honest. And I think it's supposed to be assumed that living in this really shitty town, being a cop, in this shitty town has taken its toll.
Yeah. Because no one likes the police. That's the gist of the story.
It's a rough town. It would be an awful job. I mean, his daughter basically says, like, why do you have to be a cop?
Yep.
I suppose we see on numerous occasions where he does have Nick's back. Nick being his partner, played by Joel Edgerton.
Yep.
But it's all every time he does it, it's all like a very Hollywood kind of moment for him to have Nick's back. Not like a character development. Oh, maybe you are turning. You're kind of a nice guy.
Yeah, changing.
Yeah. Which I didn't expect not to like him. Like, Will Smith doesn't play that character generally. Which
and maybe that's why it was weird.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, what about Nick? So
he was really likable.
Yep.
He was one of the very few characters with any sort of moral compass within the entire film. I like the fact that he didn't see race and he acted on right and wrong. But as a result, he's basically an outcast. This is kind of Nick's story.
Yep.
But of course, like, the man who does the right thing and thinks the right way and makes the right calls comes out on top in this film. So in that sense, it was very black and white, despite the fact that it was supposed to be a little bit more muddled and gritty, and it was...
Yeah.
Oh, this is the good guy of the film? Okay, I bet he's going to come out right.
I liked that he just wanted to be accepted. Being a cop to him was everything. Even like we spoke before, how everyone hates cops. He didn't care. He just wanted to be a cop and he wanted to do the right thing. And he helps this kid at the start, and that was doing the right thing. And he pulls his gun on his partner because he won't stand for lawlessness. He's this sort of character that and he's a traitor to his own tribe of orcs. And he didn't break at the end as well, so he sort of showed that commitment to his tribe or his race as well. And I just thought it was a nice full sort of circle for him.
Yeah, it really was. No,
compared to Ward, who you didn't really get that full circle.
Straight line that kind of tried to turn inwards a little bit and didn't.
Yeah,
quite.
Not really.
This movie doesn't work at all without Nick, and a great performance from Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, some heavy makeup too.
Yeah, he was obviously unrecognisable, but even like we're obviously quite familiar with Joel Edgerton being an Australian. Even the voice was just bang on. Like everything he did, he's a great actor.
Who have you got next?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've got Layla next.
Yep.
But I also don't have very much to say about her.
Me either.
Because this is my question. So she's the main villain. There's a lot of villains in the film, but she's probably the main one. And do we really get to know her at all? We just know her as a villain on a mission who's going to stop at nothing to get her wand back.
Pretty much.
I kind of like a villain with a little bit more substance.
Context. You need some context to why she's doing it. And there's this context that, she's doing this for that Dark Lord, but you don't get why.
Yeah, she's just doing it to wreak evil on Earth.
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about her. Know her weaknesses. Not even know her weaknesses, but they just create this character that's like, oh, well, as soon as she gets to wand, she's unbeatable. It's like, why is she unbeatable? And how'd she get to where she is? So, that kind of stuff.
She had some cool moves, though.
She did.
Some very cool moves. I had Rodriguez beforehand because I just thought this was an interesting character. So he was this cop who they described him as solid as fuck.
He wasn't the cop though.
He was a sheriff. He was a sheriff. Yeah. Sorry, they described him as solid as fuck. And
who did? Ward.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then the first time you see him, he calls in the feds on Ward and Nick, and then handcuffs him. And so I didn't even if you're going to set up a character as being this solid character, the first thing you see him do is nah, I'm turning you in. I don't know.
But he's solid on someone's word who is dicey at the best of time anyway.
But yeah, I know. But I feel like Ward they'd set that up earlier at a scene where they introduced Ward and him, and it was okay, these guys get along. They look out for each other. And then as soon as you meet him and he doesn't look out for him, I was like, hang on, this, I don't know, it confused me a little bit.
But as it turned out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because they might be, but the feds were kind of the good guys at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because they were all trying to stop Layla, the evil elf. I think I'd say that sentence. But so the feds were... If the feds had have actually come and saved the day, granted their phone got tapped when they made that phone call, so that was dangerous.
Yep.
But if the feds had come and seen them then and there, it would have been a good result.
You'd hope so.
So
you'd like to think so.
Rodriguez, regardless whether he knew he was doing it or not, probably made the right call.
Good. Have you got any other characters?
I did. I had, and this is going to be interesting because I didn't know his name until I saw it on IMDb. Is Candemir, of course, the elf fed.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
Look, he was, as I said, he was basically, despite not knowing it, and I didn't mind the fact that I was never sure whether they were good or bad, those feds. Yeah. Turns out they were pretty good.
I didn't even have them down.
More than anything else, he was a vehicle for plot progression. So he helps the audience discover the story around Tika and Layla initially. And then obviously you learn about the wand through him. So all this stuff that's actually happening to Nick and Ward, or Jacoby and Ward, you're learning about through his sort of tale to try and find them as well.
True.
So he was just this nice little vehicle for plot progression, which actually worked quite well.
So I had another character for the getting from the A to B. I had Tika as well.
Well, Tika's
Tika.
Next one I've got.
I had her down as a plot progression. Like, she didn't really do much apart from being there to progressing with the wand.
Yeah, and you know what? That's why I found her an extremely frustrating character.
Yeah.
Because clearly these two guys were trying to protect her when nobody else would. So she really should have spoken up sooner, because she had like these insane powers that could have helped them throughout this whole movie process. And then at the end, she's like, I just wasn't sure if I could trust you. It's like, come on. Like, everyone's dying around you. These guys are doing everything for you. That's going to come out very soon when we talk about scenes. That pissed me off when it's like, oh, you speak English? I was like, no, don't do that.
I had one other character.
Yeah.
I had Poison, the bad Hispanic sort of guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
I just had him as the worst B-story bad guy ever.
Yeah, he was.
It's like they literally said, okay, we've got to have an A and a B character for every type of character that we've got. And it's like, we'll put him... He wants the one because he wants to be able to walk again. And he's just going to be this gangster that thinks he's cool. And like, he died. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting him to die that early or that quickly.
Well, that's when you kind of knew he wasn't the real bad guy that I was worried about. But with him, were you thinking, or was it just me? Were you just like, well, how did this guy become paralyzed? Or how did he lose his...
walking
legs.
ability,
walking ability, because I'm like, how is he so powerful if he's just a dude in a wheelchair?
He's got a good gang to push him around. So
I reckon he must have been badass and then
beforehand,
lost his legs. But I was like, come on, I'm supposed to believe this guy's the bad guy?
Yeah. Have you got any other characters?
I don't.
No, all right. Well, the director, David Ayer. So we've mentioned a little bit. So he directed Suicide Squad. He's directed Street Kings, and he's directed End of Watch. So all films that sort of have this, not necessarily police, but like some sort of force that...
Yeah, they're definitely this kind of film.
Yeah.
It's like this film actually takes little bits of all
of them. Yeah. I just thought that was interesting.
And you know what? It's not fair for me to continually compare it to Suicide Squad. I'm not saying is it better or worse. I'm just... There's parts that I noted that you see the similarities, and for me, the similarities were the things that didn't work in one of them, so...
All right. Scene time.
Yep.
Time for us to talk about some scenes that we liked.
Well, I talk about scenes first a lot when it's just you and me.
Sure.
And because you like this film more than I did, I think, I'd like to hear yours.
Hopefully I have a few more.
I want to hear you. I know, I do have scenes.
Oh, good. Well, I really liked the introduction at the start where you've got all this graffiti on the wall that sort of introduces you to the world quite well, I thought.
The opening credits?
Yeah. So you've got like all these brick walls, and they've got, these messages about, in the beginning, all races were created equal, but elves are more equal. And I was like, okay, cool. So we get the elves as sort of this sort of people that get more power.
Higher society.
Yeah, higher society. And then, the orcs fight for you, who fights for us. So all these messages, and you're learning about these races or types of creatures straight away without even actually seeing any of the characters.
Yeah.
And, there are these nice messages too, like, be yourself, and they're the ones that hold up to keep you down. And then there was this image or this picture, and it was like, the LAPD were shooting and beating people, and I was like, straight away, okay, this is going to talk a little bit, obviously it's a film that's going to have a police or we're going to follow some cops. Yep. And it's nice to know, or like have a bit of background about how the people in the society who are a bit lower are thinking about this. So you set up straight away that Ward was going to be this character that didn't have a lot of support. And there was one last little one where it was like the elves sign, and it was the Beverly Hills sign, and it was like elves only, and I was like, oh, that's a nice little comparison. Yeah. The rich people live in Beverly Hills, so for me that set it up really well. Like I had a good understanding of where these races were straight away.
Point. They did it pretty quickly as well.
Very quickly, like I had to
very nice and early, but then when they drive through the elf place and. Yeah, I actually thought something was going to happen. When he's like, "Oh, don't go through there," and it was just like, "Oh, just nice cars."
Just to show off. Yeah. Nice. I thought I had a bit of a laugh. The first scene with Ward and Nick in the car, and Nick plays the greatest orcish love song, and it's his hard metal song. I had a good giggle. I thought that was funny.
Because you hear the song first, and then he goes, "What? That's one of the greatest love songs of all time."
I thought that was cool. There were a lot of these cool little, if you blink and you miss sort of things. So there's like a scene where they drive up, and they're getting called out to all these sorts of things that are happening on the streets, and there's like this police beating down on these people, and there's there's a centaur police officer. Yeah, and didn't even notice. And then like there's another scene where they cut to this this establishing shot of the LA skyline, and there's a dragon flying through the skyline, and I was just like, this is a cool little world setting of these cool little things that were in the background.
I didn't know that,
so I liked that. That was cool. I thought that there was an action scene in the service station where what's her face,
Tika?
Tika's there, but also Layla's sort of like chasing them, and Nick gets stuck to the front of the car, and it's reversing, and I thought that was a nice little action sequence. I thought that was cool.
I was thinking how they would have shot that, and that would have been an absolute mess to shoot because it was in such a small space. Hats off to that one.
Obviously, spoilers. So there's a scene towards the end where Nick gets shot and he gets pushed down this hole, and that got me. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Neither was I.
That shocked me. I was like,
I was happy with it. Like, good on you for taking the risk.
Yeah, and then I was even more surprised when Tika pulls out her magic wand and brings him back to life. I wasn't expecting either of those things to happen. It sort of, both those things got me, and I like that because it got me.
I was bothered when she brought him back to life. I was like, oh, you know what? Just kill him. Like, and I loved him as a character, and this film doesn't work without him, and Bright 2 definitely doesn't work without him, but like, come on.
the last sort of thing that I like is that, there's this big thing throughout the film where Ward keeps telling Nick, I'm not your friend. And then after Nick's reborn, instead of calling him Jacoby the whole time, he starts calling him Nick. Okay. And I just liked that little change.
Reborn being like,
after Tika brings him back alive.
After Nick was reborn.
After Nick was reborn, yeah. So it was just nice that he called him Nick from then on.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was cool.
Good pickup.
Yeah. All right, what about you? What have you got?
Well, to be honest, the 4 scenes or shots or bits that I've got are all different to yours.
Good.
But they also all come like within a little 15-minute period in the middle of the film, and I liked it. Just that whole shootout scene culminating in catching the elf, or catching Tika at the start with the wand. That was just a really cool scene, going through that abandoned house, and you could feel the tension when they're walking through. They didn't know what they were going to see. They saw like an elf in the wall.
The elf in the wall was pretty cool visually.
Yeah, it was. That whole scene was really cool. And then it went straight into Ward taking out those four cops, and I was just like, "Fuck yeah, I'm in!" Like, this is really cool.
It was a little bit easy. He just says to Nick, "Hey, so who's standing behind me?" Okay, this guy. Okay, bang, bang, bang.
What order are they standing in? I was like, "Yeah, come on, get him."
Sounds like a heater moment.
That's what I was getting to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go crazy action fan on this. And then in that same scene when they start running away from everyone, I like Nick's reaction to shooting a guy. So when Nick first shot a guy. Yep. I was actually wondering myself, as soon as he did, I'm like, I wonder if he's actually killed anyone before. And he hadn't shot anyone. And that reaction was so real and so proper.
True. And I guess, they did sort of develop that quite well throughout that, Nick had, there was a scene where they were hiding behind the car. He's like, oh, I don't like being shot at. And this is what it feels like.
Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah. And then the last one I have was every now and then I like a nice bit of dialogue, even if it's a bit soppy. But the scene in the bathroom with Nick explaining, what it means to be an orc, and then what it means to be a cop, and why he wants to die for a world that actually hates him. I liked it when Ward called him a good dude, and then I also liked it even more when Ward said, "You don't want to be friends with me," because I was like, "You don't want to be friends with this guy," and he said it himself. I was like, "Good, bit of self-awareness." That was a really nice scene. And then the film kind of lost me after that point, which was unfortunate.
So, do you want to go through some things that you got lost on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it kind of actually started with when the orcs... And look, I not that I disliked the start, but I wasn't drawn in from the start, to be honest. I came in really came in when they got the wand in the first place. But when the orcs sort of captured them, it just kind of felt like another scene to add to the journey initially.
When they take him to the church?
Yeah, and I didn't like the whole prophecy shit. Obviously, him dying and coming back to life. It all became a little bit too much of a cop-out. It was almost like, I can do whatever I want because this is a fantasy film, and I can do whatever I want to make it fixed, sort of thing. That's kind of how I get that. And then it led straight to Tika being a Bright, who's only in training.
She only knows a couple of words.
And she speaks English. All of a sudden, there was just this power that they could have used that was right with them all along. Kind of annoyed me a little bit as well.
Fair.
Yeah, so then it got to the point when they were driving in the car and they had to go back to the pool, and I was like, what is going on? Like, why didn't you just say this from the very start? That's where you knew you needed to go. Just do it from the very start. Just the whole silliness got to me a little bit, and that whole last little bit lost me. So, yeah, that final showdown, as I said, was very Suicide Squad. Like, the whole magic stuff. Remember the end of Suicide Squad where Cara Delevingne is just like...
I've blocked a lot of that film out of my mind because that trailer is probably one of my favorite trailers of all time. I thought that trailer was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, just it was to Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's right.
And each cut and each beat of that song was done amazingly with like the gunshots, and it was an amazing trailer. And then I saw the film and I was like, I was so disappointed. So disappointed.
I really liked the opening of Suicide Squad where they introduced you to all the characters. That was really cool. That's my favourite bit of it. But then all that magic stuff at the end, like, firstly, we don't actually know what it takes to be a Bright. No one's ever bothered to tell us. And
that's really hard when you're setting up this whole mythology of a whole world on one film.
Yeah, exactly right. So when Ward grabs the wand, it's not like there's some kind of ancestry or trait or something that he needs to have to be a Bright. Or if there is, we don't know about it. So
there was one little line of dialogue early on that said 1 in a million humans have the ability to be a Bright.
So it's a chance thing?
Yeah, like and that was like, it wasn't a good explanation.
So the whole film rests on him having this heroic moment where he grabs the wand, basically attempting suicide to blow up everybody around him and kind of save the day, but at his own expense.
Maybe that's the one action he needed to be the Bright, was he's actually being selfless for a change.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe if they had painted it as, we need some traits. But that was like the fourth or fifth cop-out in a row where I was like, don't stop treating me like an idiot. But I can understand if you got into it and didn't care about this stuff as well. But I almost just felt insulted by this whole back half of the film.
Okay.
And... man, we didn't need the hospital scene or that Medal of Honor scene.
No,
that was just, come on. So and I hope I've justified that, what I was thinking, because I'll get some more thoughts later on as well. But every now and then I'm like, oh, come on. And I love taking leaps of faith in film. If you give me enough reason to take a leap of faith, I'll take a leap of faith. But I've got a limit, and this one pushed my limit.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So the things that sort of let me down a bit, they were just little things that, I don't know, just didn't sit well with me more rather than the story, I guess. So there's a scene at the start where there's a fairy and Ward goes out to beat it with a broomstick. I didn't think that developed anything in the character or in the film, other than to say there's fairies in the world.
No, yeah, exactly right. Not so much fairies in the world as much as this is the world. It's a fantastical world.
But he went out with a broomstick, beat the crap out of it, and the people next door are just like...
Yeah, it also showed that he lives in the slums.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't a massive fan of that.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't like the way that the cops all treated Nick. Like, I understand he was an outsider, but just stupid things like putting a sticker on his back saying "kick me." I was like,
that's true.
We're a bit more mature than that. We're not like, cops aren't high school kids.
Not to mention your audience isn't high school kids.
Yeah.
Well, young high school kids anyway.
Yeah. There was a line where one of them said, they're trying to work out how the kid escaped the alleyway when Nick let them go. And they made some comment about, orcs can't jump. That's why they're not in the NBA. They're big. That's why they're in the NFL. It's not racism. It's physics. I was just like, I don't know. It just didn't add anything. That line was just, to me, was gross almost.
To me, it's almost saying how incorporated these species are in our society.
Yeah.
Like, we legitimately have linebackers as orcs in the NFL. Which I wouldn't have minded a scene of that. That would have been pretty cool.
Would have been funny.
What species do you reckon would have been playing NBA?
Don't know. Who knows?
Humans have got them covered still.
Maybe a species we didn't even meet.
A dragon might have.
Dragon, yeah. I didn't like that scene in the church with all the orcs. And, there's lines like, the boss is like, I know there's a wand. Where's the wand? He's like, it's up your ass. It's like, just crappy dialogue.
He wrote this for David Ayer, specifically.
Similar to you, I didn't like that Tika just started speaking English. Just annoyed me. I agree with you with that scene where they had to take her to the tree in the water.
Yeah.
But I did think that tree looked pretty cool.
No issues. It was always when she said, we're going to go to this tree in the pool. I was like, what? Like, if that's where you needed to go all along, where are we getting these guys to take you in the first time? And
same as you, the post scenes in the hospital bed, with Nick just going on and on, just dragged on too long. It wasn't needed.
Didn't it? Oh, goodness.
And the ceremony at the end annoyed me as well because, that's the only... I might talk about this later, but that was the only time that we saw Ward's wife and daughter. Like, he told him to get out of the city, and that's the only reconnection we have of him. And we see that Tika's still alive.
So I reckon that when he told him to get out of the city, that was almost like an afterthought. I reckon they maybe cut the film. They were like, "Oh shit, what happened to his wife and kid? Like, let's just shoot a scene where he jumps on the phone."
And then the other thing about that ceremony thing too was where he's like, "Oh, I hate seeing Rodriguez up here with all these scumbags." I'm like, "Well, Rodriguez wasn't that good anyway to you, so don't cry about it." Anyway, that was me.
But like, the thing about seeing Tika at the end, you can make a sequel with Bride 2.
Yeah.
And you can put Tika in it. And I still don't need that last scene.
No.
Like, I'm like, okay, cool. She's around. I'm all right with that. Like,
you don't need her running.
That's a leap of faith I can take.
Yeah.
But if it was just like, we didn't see her at the end of Bride.
So how is she still alive?
Yeah.
All right, what's this film trying to say? What are some themes or ideas? I picked up quite a bit in this one that I liked.
Yeah. All right. Well,
go.
I think one of the biggest ones is racism.
Yes.
And how it's such a segregated society, and this is reflective of the world we live in now as well. How it's such a segregated society, and how two relative outcasts work together to save the day. Basically, the one character that we resonate with, the whole film is Nick, and Nick's the one person that doesn't see race, and Nick's the one person that gets results. So.
Yep. Yeah, I like this. It was sort of about, like you said, racism, but promoting diversity a little bit without prejudice. So, and they sort of did. I liked that Will Smith played Ward. So you had this black guy where it was turned onto different species rather than having that's
a good point.
That symbol of black people being the ones that are brutalized by the police. So they switched that around nicely. I thought, you've got the elves as the rich and the powerful. So you still do have these classes.
Absolutely.
And I didn't mind the way that they did that. Anything else?
I want to hear what you're going to say.
I liked this idea too. You just briefly spoke about it, but Nick and Ward working together. So although he was an orc, it was sort of like talking a little bit about humanity as well, because just because everyone's different doesn't mean that people are smarter or dumber. And I think that was a word that sort of Ward said to his daughter at some stage. And everyone's just trying to get along and have a good life. It didn't really matter who you were; you've all just got to work together. I kind of liked that throughout.
Well, that was the thing. Like, everyone was so segregated into their own classes, and it was the people that mixed between race that actually won.
There was like the cops as well, like this brutality, corruptness. The sergeant's trying to blackmail Ward. She says like, "There's no version where you walk out of this room with your life intact." And I liked that. Obviously, this stage in America, there was quite a bit of tension with the police, so it was nice to have that sort of in that film as well. Yeah. Truth, a little bit of truth where Ward talks about his daughter. He's like, she always tells the truth, and in reverse, he doesn't. And there's a scene where in the car, and he
was saying how his daughter always tells the truth in order so he could weasel out Jacoby.
Well, there was like a moment where I thought maybe he was going to tell Jacoby, "Hey, this is the deal I've done, just so you're aware." And then there's sort of like the truth sets people free at the end. And I don't know whether the truth did set Ward free in the end, because he finally, under circumstances that probably weren't his own, had to,
not tell the truth.
Yeah. So yeah. Survival too, these guys just had to survive that night. That's what they were talking about. Neither of them trusted each other fully, but they needed to survive.
That's a good one, and that's probably what, if you want to sell this film to someone, is you really push that whole survival angle, because that's the thing that can work so well cinematically sometimes.
Exactly. Guns too. Like, there's this comment on the guns, like the orcs don't use them, and they get along with everyone. So if we don't use guns, can we all just get along?
Do the orcs get along with everyone?
Well, that's what he said. We had parties. We had parties in the streets,
sorry,
and all that sort of stuff. So and then obviously the orcs are this outsider. They're the ones that don't have guns, but they're on the outside. So
they really treat him almost like the Hispanic type, like segregated, do their own thing. Yeah, and it kind of works. And
then a little bit of faith, like believe in what they were doing. And I think that Nick definitely believed in what he was doing, which was nice.
Yeah, although they question themselves a whole bunch in this film.
Definitely. Cool, that's...
Bit to unpack there, very nice.
Yeah. All right, what do we take away from this film?
To me, it really felt like Training Day in Fantasyland. And I was actually thinking this all along. Like, you've got this young cop and this old cop, very different dynamic, but especially at the end when he's like, this is the guy that when he was going to get killed by the orc, and he said, this is the guy that saved my life. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this is Training Day. It certainly wasn't as good as Training Day and didn't work the same way as Training Day did. But I'd probably recommend this film to people who like dark crime action films. Films like Run All Night or Taken, where audiences are happy to just let the director take some pretty big creative licenses to advance the story and just have fun with it. I think that's someone... You know what? Again, we speak about Heater a lot in the episodes that he doesn't actually record with us. I think Heater would have enjoyed this film.
I think so too.
Maybe the fantastical elements would have pushed him away a bit, but...
So I really liked the fantasy world that the narrative existed in.
I like that bit too.
Even though we didn't really know much about it.
Yeah.
You didn't know much about that world, but I want to know more.
That's it. You know what? That's bang on, right? So you want to know more, but you don't want them to use that, they don't know enough about it, to trick you and to go, oh no, this happens. We didn't tell you this, but this is how this word actually works. You need to set that up better.
Yeah. I reckon this would have been alright in the cinemas.
It would have been a much better experience in the cinema. I would have been really pissed off if I paid $20 to see it though.
Okay.
But just because I didn't enjoy it,
sure.
and
all right.
But it would have been interesting to see how well it went at the box office. I would have been so fascinated to see it.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Well, Will Smith has a bit of a box office draw card.
He does.
Yeah.
He definitely doesn't have one as big as he used to.
Not at all. No. Yeah, I'd be intrigued too. I probably wouldn't I probably wouldn't have gone to see it at the movie, but watching it on Netflix, I probably wouldn't have minded seeing it at the cinema. All right, we have a segment where we have a discussion if we jumped on IMDb to check out any actors or actresses that we may have recognised. Did you jump on it all?
I did jump on.
What did you see?
The first one was Candemir, the elf fed that I spoke about before. Yep. Edgar Ramirez. Obviously, his eyes. He was wearing contact lenses in this, and his eyes look sick. But he was Bodhi in the Point Break remake. Have you seen?
I haven't seen the remake.
No. Seen the remake. He was also in the movie Joy with Jennifer Lawrence.
The cleaning one.
Yeah, I've seen that. Or whatever. Yeah. Not a great film. I didn't enjoy it. But he was her husband in that. But I remember that because that was like a similar time to Point Break. They sort of came out at the same time, and I was like, "Who is this guy? He's everywhere." And then haven't really seen it till now.
I looked up his partner.
Okay.
So his name is Jerry Brudos. Do you know what his character's name was? His character's name was Happy Anderson.
Really?
Yeah.
The big gruff guy.
Hang on. Did I get that right? Sorry, I got this completely wrong. His real name is Happy Anderson.
Oh.
He plays Jerry Brudos in Mindhunter.
His real name's Happy.
Happy Anderson Montague.
Yeah, right.
So, his real name's Happy Anderson. And his character's name in the film was Montague, and he's from Mindhunter, and he plays the character Jerry Brudos. There you go, I stuffed that up. But yeah, I remember straight away I was like, I know your face, and I was like, I saw a screenshot of Mindhunter, and I was like, that's what you're from.
Well, I had Lucy Fry, who plays Tika.
Yes, okay.
Who is an Australian girl from Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she is in a film called Now Add Honey, which is...
That's got Hamish Blake in it, doesn't it?
He's in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a truly awful film. When I was working in film advertising, we released that one probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was terrible. And she was the main character in that. She's also in the series 11/22/63. The
Stephen King one.
So she plays Marina Oswald, so Lee Harvey Oswald's wife.
Okay.
And she's also in a film called Mr. Church, which is actually the last Eddie Murphy movie before he did Dolomite.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you know what? I don't even know if it got released. I saw it as well, and I didn't mind it, actually. It's not a bad watch. More of it feels like a daytime movie kind of watch. But So I've actually seen, like, I think Lucy
Seen her in a
Fry's
lot.
been in like 10
Yeah.
films, and I've seen now like 4 of them. So
Wow.
I'm sure she's going to be in the next Bride as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, have you got any questions that you'd like to ask?
This is good because we were like really close to like getting to this question.
Yeah, and we didn't quite.
And I want to ask you.
Yes.
Would this have worked better as a TV series than a film?
Ooh.
Even like a 6-parter, because I just feel like so much of the world wasn't properly introduced.
Fair call. But it probably would have, but that to me is like, I want to see the sequel now because I hope they explain a little bit more.
That's not fair.
That's my answer.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying that's cheating as a director. Like, get it right the first time.
Okay, fair. But if he's got this world set up where he's like, I can explain more and more in the films.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's a good answer, but that's what just really bothered me. And particularly, like, you could have had the very first episode talking about, like, the history of what a bride is.
So, like, with the sequel, what would you want it to be about?
I want this... You can do this one night in a 6-parter.
Okay.
But you just spend a lot more time talking about the world. And it might start at, like, school with Will Smith's daughter, talking about the history of the world, talking about what a bride is.
Yep.
You might have, moments in the street, understanding the orcs. And then you sort of... You drag it out a little bit, but then you go into this night and how it all pans out.
Okay. Because I thought the sequel, I'd like to know how Ward's a bride. That's, to me, that's what I'd want from the sequel.
What is a bride? I don't care if Ward is one.
Got this magic power.
This
That's what it's all about.
Bride.
Yeah, he's got a magic power. Yeah. What else you got to ask?
That's all I had to ask, sorry.
I like this line. I was like, why do people have beef with a whole race with stuff that happened over 2,000 years ago? I was like, you can relate that so much to the real world.
Like, that's not a real question, is it? Like,
yeah, but you have this fantasy world where they're asking that question about all these races, and it's like, that relates to us as well.
It's so true.
Which I like. That's why I like that as a question. Why didn't we get to see the Dark Lord? I wanted to see the Dark Lord.
Well, he wasn't unveiled because they didn't win. Because she never got her wand back.
I get that, but like, yeah, I know. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen.
Right?
I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah.
I just reckon, I didn't like that we didn't get to see some kind of vision of him or him like sort of building his power back up or something like that.
Maybe he's in the sequel. Jesse.
And then the last one I had was like, I've mentioned about this before. When Ward called his wife in the bar, I was like, we didn't get to see it till the end again. I feel like we needed a reminder to see where they were at.
Yeah.
Because you get to him, that's an important thing, is his family. We needed that check-in with him for that importance.
Was there a threat on his family? I guess in general
yeah.
Everyone's after him. He's the next best.
Yeah, true. All right. I think it's time to wrap this up.
I think it is.
So we give the film a rating out of 5 and then work out what the average is as a team. MJ, what have you got?
Well, the high expectations were probably my own fault, but it certainly did leave me unfulfilled. The director asked me to take way too many leaps of faith, but didn't pull me into the journey enough for me to actually want to do it. There were some great scenes throughout the middle of the film that really worked for me, but not enough to get me on side. I'm giving it 2.5.
Okay.
But it's a low 2.5. It just wasn't quite a 2.
Okay.
But it is 2.5.
All right, well, I've got into this world. I thought the relationship between Nick and Ward was good because they didn't do what your typical Hollywood film does and makes them best buds at the end. I liked that they kept that, distinction. I liked the world, thought it was fun, and it was trying to say stuff about our world as well. So I've given it a 3.5.
Cool.
Which gives us an average of 3.
It's a nice average.
Nice average of 3, which is good. So we are on social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Apple Podcasts. If you can subscribe.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Question that we're going to pop up there this week is, did you like that they made a big deal about Nick and Ward not being friends at the end?
Did they? When they were laying down on each other's lap in the fire, and he said, like, "Are we friends?"
And he says, "No, we're still not
friends."
friends."
Yeah, cool. I couldn't remember what the answer was, but I like that he asked.
I like that. Yeah. So I just want to know: did that annoy you, or would you have rather them to be friends?
Nah, it's better than
that. I like that too.
And you know what? They are. Like, they are. Just because I don't say it. Like, how can you not be friends with someone that you just went through that with?
The rest of the world still hates orcs, though, so...
Yeah, we'll find out in Bright too, won't we?
We sure will. All right, well, we're back again tomorrow.
We are.
We're looking at the 2017 biographical comedy film. It's called The Poker King. It's directed by Mayor Forbes. It stars Jack Black, Jenny Slate, Jason Schwartzman, and Jackie Weaver.
Cool.
Good cast.
Hang on, is it poker or polka?
Polka, sorry.
Polka.
Poker face. I was just thinking, doing a bit of Lady Gaga. The Poker King. No ER.
That sounds good. I think that'll be a bit of a change of pace.
Yeah, a bit of Jack Black. So we'll see you tomorrow. Good chat again, as usual.
Great chat. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Good. All right. See you then.
Bye.